Here should be ready to go.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4,
3,
3, 2, 1.
Using gerrymandering, voter suppression, and other nefarious tactics, the Republican Party has manipulated our electoral system to maintain as much control as possible despite being a party in the minority. Liberal Dan Radio seeks to change that, and I need your help in doing so. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution, it will encourage other voters to reach out to their legislators to pass legislation to stop gerrymandering and voter suppression, and target elected officials who refuse to protect the vote. Every eligible voter should be able to cast a ballot, and that ballot should have the same power as everyone else. I can't do this alone. I need your help. So please go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, area code 914-803-4131. That is area code 914-803-4131. If you are listening during the live broadcast, you want to call in that way, or you can join us in the Blog Talk Radio chat room. Go to the Blog Talk Radio page, sign in with your free account, go to the episode page, and at the bottom of the page you'll see the chat room there. Or you can join us on the YouTube chat room, youtube.com/liberaldanradio. Go to the live video going on right now, and you can comment live in the chat as well, and I'll respond to you as I get to them. And if you're listening after the live broadcast, you can always leave your comments, questions, concerns, etc. over on the show thread at liberaldan.com, facebook.com/liberaldan, or at liberaldanradio on Twitter, or on the video comment section after the show as well. Excuse me, got a bunch to talk about this week. I am finally boosted because I took part of the Novavax trial. I really wish the Novavax would get their emergency authorization up and running, or just their authorization up and running, because according to the data that comes from the study so far, it's a pretty good efficacy rate of preventing the infection. You know, it has a pretty good efficacy rate, and you know, they're really up there. It's just for some reason they had some manufacturing issues, I think, which prevented them from being able to create some mass creation. I think they've been focusing more on some European and Asian countries as well. But one of the things that conservatives seem to not like when it comes to the vaccines, especially some of the more out there conspiracy theory type folks, is the people who want to call the vaccine gene therapy. You know, they're still calling it that, even though that's not what it is. But it is an mRNA vaccine in Pfizer and Moderna. But Novavax is not an mRNA vaccine. So if perhaps if Novavax was out there, you'd get at least some of the people who are hesitant to take an mRNA vaccine. Maybe they would be like, okay, well, I'll take Novavax instead because it's not mRNA. That's why I hope that they would get it to the American market, because I think it would help. Even though I'd rather people not have irrational fears about what the vaccine is and isn't, but there seems to be a certain segment of society that's convinced that mRNA vaccines are somehow harmful. And I don't believe that they're harmful. I would have taken Pfizer if I was not already taking part in the Novavax vaccine. But, wait, I need Donald to say this. Hold on. My mouse,
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. It is what it is. And there are going to be people who are still going to be hesitant to take this mRNA vaccine because of what they've heard. Doesn't matter how much you tell them that what they've heard is wrong, they're going to dig in and be like, no, but I heard this. So give them the vaccine that's not mRNA, that's not Johnson & Johnson either, because of the issues that people have been dealing with Johnson & Johnson, with all the, claims of, was it blood clot or whatever, even though there are medicines out there that people take all the time that cause more blood clots than what Johnson & Johnson caused, and because people don't know how to science and don't understand rates. That's right. I would love to play. I mean, it would mean that I would have to hang out with these people, but I would love to play poker with some of these people because they don't understand odds at all. They're terrible at odds. I mean, stupid but lucky beats smart every day. But over the long term, I think I'd be able to get all of their money at the poker table because they just don't understand odds. They'd be like, ooh, I'm going to go for this inside straight. Ooh, 7 deuce has the same chance of winning as pocket aces. Wonderful. But yeah, so there's that. So I'm finally boosted. So yay. Me and my family, there's not going to be a show the first week of March, probably. We have a planned vacation that is going to be taking place. It's going to be our first time going on vacation since the start of the pandemic. I mean, we did go to Georgia to evacuate for Hurricane Ida, but that wasn't a vacation. That was a fleeing. This is going to be our first time going out and doing things. But why? Why do I feel safe? Because we're all vaccinated. My youngest has his shots, and even though he had a shot, he did get COVID. He tested positive for COVID, but for 90 days, he doesn't even have to quarantine if he has an exposure around him. Doesn't have to do anything because of the exposure that he had to COVID. No, the rest of us didn't get COVID. Why? We're all vaccinated. So we're protected. And, I figured we've done the right thing for the last 2 years. We deserve to enjoy ourselves and to have a good time. And hopefully people don't ruin it for us. Of course, this means we have to go to Florida because we're going to Disney. But that'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But it's going to be our first time going out and about doing, major things. We've been, small get-togethers we've been taking part in. But again, we've been trying to behave, to do the reasonable, responsible, cautious thing because I don't want to be the person that spreads this disease to other people. So, but there's people like, if you go to my Twitter account, there was a guy, this is almost going to be the words of Redneck Wisdom, except there was another one that was better, where this guy's running for Texas in this Texas 2nd Congressional District. And he's running against Dan Crenshaw. Conservative, crazy Dan Crenshaw is not crazy enough for this person that called into this talk show. And he was like, well, if masks worked, somebody is not dealing with all cylinders if they start the sentence with, if masks worked. Why? Because masks work. They just don't understand why they work. Well, if masks work, people wear cloth masks when dealing with viruses in the lab. No, but they do. Well, yeah, the people in the lab dealing with viruses are going to wear like these big hazmat suits because those to protect them. The cloth masks were to protect other people. Other people. I don't know what it is so difficult to understand about the fact that it's other people. It's clear. But they don't get it. They don't understand it. And he goes, if masks work. No. Masks work. Period. End of story. You lose. You don't get it right. I hope, but it's crazy that Dan Crenshaw is not conservative enough for them, for some of these people. I mean, but then again, they call Lindsey Graham a rhino, and Mitch McConnell is, beholden to China or whatever, and he is a rhino too. Why? Because he occasionally, says something like he said the other day, when Donald Trump said that he was going to pardon if he were to run for president and win, he would pardon the January 6th people. And Mitch McConnell, to his credit, whatever, says, well, if they pled guilty to a crime, they should not be pardoned. And conservatives don't like that because, these conservatives want to be apologists to these terrorists, insurrectionists from January 6th because they viewed them as heroes. But I don't know. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. But speaking of Hypocrite of the Week, even though, that person, that congressional candidate was not, or words of Redneck wisdom, mind you, I'm sorry. Actually, no. Do I want to do Hypocrite of the Week first? Let's do Hypocrite of the Week first, because that does include somebody I just spoke about.
This week's Hypocrites of the Week are Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and other Senate Republicans who stated that they don't want the nomination process to replace Justice Breyer to be too quick or to seat an extremist. When replacing Justice Ginsburg, the Senate Republicans rushed to confirm extremist Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Of course, when it comes to Supreme Court nominations, nobody is as hypocritical as 2021 Hypocrite of the Year Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. To see who next week's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central on blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan.
And there we go, another entry for Mitch McConnell trying to secure himself as the 2022 Hypocrite of the Year as well. But yes, but even Susan Collins was like, we can't rush through this. Well, you rushed through Amy Coney Barrett. I mean, what was it, 40 days or something? Absolutely rushed Amy Coney Barrett. And to change the ideological makeup of the court. This is not going to change the ideological makeup of the court. But, we can't rush these things. Yes, you can. You have and you've done. And so we should get to do it too. Stop it. Anyway, let's go ahead and take the first commercial break. We can come back and take your calls as well. Area code 914-803-4131. That's area code 914-803-4131. This is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Are you planning a trip to Disney soon? Do you want help avoiding spending mistakes and making the most of your vacation? Then check out Budgeteers.com, a new site devoted to helping you get the most mouse for your money. What kinds of tickets should you get? Is the dining plan a good deal for you? Should you stay on grounds or not? Should you buy park hoppers? Many other sites are filled with information about what other people like to do, but Budgeteers is geared to help you make the best decision for you. So check out Budgeteers.com or go to YouTube.com/Budgeteers and help make your trip the best it can be. Budgeteers.com is not a travel agency and it is not affiliated with the Disney Corporation or any of its holdings. In a world gone mad, one progressive will do a bad movie trailer guy impression to get you to listen to his show. There's only one thing that I like better than the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. All right, Bill, that's enough of that. On the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast, you will hear an honest discussion of the day's issues, with some personal bits in between. You might even hear what the other side has to say, sometimes even in their own voices. So become one of the Liberal Dan family, because family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. To hear those bad impressions and more, tune into the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. Talk from the left, that's right. And I think to myself, what a wonderful show. Yeah. If you enjoy Liberal Dan Radio, there's many ways that you can support the show. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter or TikTok. And you can become a Liberal Dan Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a shout out. Higher levels get the opportunity to vote on what I do next on the podcast, the Minicast, or on YouTube. You can even buy commercial advertising or sponsor bits. So go to patreon.liberaldan.com and support the show today.
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Demonox, host of The World According to Nox. It's time for Season 2, where I take you on another trip through my world. The world of movies, video games, pop culture, and more. Relate them to the world around you. Don't forget to leave a question for Marscat, and find me on Twitter by the handle xDemonox. That's the letter X like X-Men, D-E-M-I-N-O-X. Now enjoy the rest of your podcast.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left. That's right, this is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. Again, to join the conversation, it's 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. I have a big announcement that's coming shortly for the show in 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today. It may very well come tonight or not, I don't know, but it'll be on Twitter and Facebook and everything else when it happens. So maybe I'll even make a TikTok about it. But I'm very excited about the show in 2 weeks. I have invited the bail fund people on. I haven't heard back from them yet to try and counter or to give them the opportunity to give their side of the story on, the idea of why why they're trying to get rid of bail, why their services are good, and I want to be fair to everybody involved. And clearly I didn't agree with a lot with what Mr. Good said last week, but I was happy to have him on to have the discussion. I probably would agree a lot more with the bail fund folks, and I hope to get them on the show to be able to have that conversation, because I'm very much looking forward to having that conversation, because I do think it's important to hear both sides of the story. So there's that. Also do want to give a shout out to Demonox, the first Liberal Dan Radio patron. Thank you for supporting the show. And to your boy Chris and Cesar out in California, both of them as well. Thank you for supporting the show. I do appreciate it. And again, also, as always, a shout out to my little brother, the host of the most Nimbus Yosh with the smooth sounds of the Percy Podcast. Hopefully we'll get more episodes of The World According to Nox and of the Percy Podcast coming up shortly. Quality podcast. Definitely want to give them a listen. So we're looking forward to the next episode. It seemed to be a hint that there might be one coming shortly for the Percy Podcast. So here's hope. And although the topic of that one, I don't want to necessarily talk about too much, because it's a problem that we have with a specific individual who shall not be named. I don't know if he's going to talk about that or not. But if he does, good on him. I'm staying out of that one. I'm done with that individual who, and as long as, that person keeps his name out my mouth, I'll keep his name out mine, and just, let the past be the past, because everyone has their problematic folks in their past, I guess. So that was a frustrating little period of my life, but whatever, it's over with. Good riddance, bad rubbish. Anyway, I don't want to beat this dead horse too much, and I was holding off on it, hoping to see Bringing a Boy, our friends out in California, our conservative friends out in California. I was hoping to be able to have them. Hopefully, maybe they'll listen after the show. Maybe they'll come in late and catch up. But I think this is potentially the last time I'm going to talk about at least this part of it. I do. One thing that's interesting is that looking at this chart that she gave to me, it really does show how, you have deaths, pneumonia deaths have roughly stayed the same of just pneumonia non-COVID. Wait, let's see. Oh, there you go. Demonox is listening and live. So there you go. We got Demonox listening, but we don't have Bringing a Boy yet. Anyway, but it's interesting to see. I want to keep track of deaths involving pneumonia, and then deaths involving pneumonia and COVID and kind of comparing the two so you can see how many deaths involve pneumonia that don't involve COVID. So you can kind of look at the numbers and be like, okay, there's a steady amount of pneumonia that takes place. And I was talking to the doctor at the vaccine study on Monday about this, and he was agreeing with everything I said. So it was nice to have somebody backing up who was a professional what I was saying. It's like, you can get pneumonia again from viruses, you can get it from bacteria, you can get it from molds and fungus and spores and various other things. There's various other ways you can get pneumonia. But a good chunk of pneumonia that has been, of the increase in pneumonia, has been because of COVID. COVID has caused a massive increase. I was tempted to use that as one of my hypocrites of the week. It was Mitch McConnell this week. But yeah, Candace Owens for saying Minnie Mouse in a pantsuit was destroying society, whilst Candace Owens also wears plenty o pantsuits. But anyway, so I think that the topic of pneumonia and how COVID has increased pneumonia, one thing I'd like to look at is to see how many COVID-19 deaths from pneumonia are vaccinated versus unvaccinated. That's what I ultimately would like to see. That's the column that I want to see. Deaths involving COVID-19 and pneumonia and split by vaccinated and non-vaccinated. Or non-vaccinated. Yes, non-vaccinated is correct. We'll get into that in 2 weeks as well. But the dead horse that I'm going to stop kicking at this point is the dead horse that she brought up from California, that that deaths were going down at the end of the year based off of the data that was the data as of 12/29/2021 in the screenshot. Because as of right now, if you look at the deaths at the end of the year of 2021, now that more data has come, I don't know if all of the data has come in, but more data has come in. And week ending 12/24, 8,487, week ending 12/11, 9,306, week ending 12/18, 9,630, week ending 12/25, 9,632, week ending January 1st of this year, 10,336, week ending January 8th, 11,662, week ending January 15th, 11,742. Now, week ending 122 is 9,585, but that's likely not complete numbers yet either. So, as you can see, and the total deaths from all causes has evened out with, the previous weeks. But you have, again, we did not see decreasing deaths towards the end of the year. We actually saw increasing deaths towards the end of the year. So it hadn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. It got worse. And that's the important thing to look at this chart. This chart was brought to my attention because to make me believe that deaths. Now, here's the thing. I wonder how many people, I don't know where she got that site. Maybe she found it herself. Cool. Maybe she found it because some other site was talking about these numbers. But if that's the case, then I'm wondering how many people were misled into thinking that COVID deaths were going down because of this chart when people were not reading this chart correctly. And look, pat myself on the back. When I was shown the chart, my skepticism was, I don't believe these are the complete numbers. I think that we'll see more numbers start to come in, and I think those numbers will rise from where we were on 12/29 to 2021 to now. And I was right. Pat myself on the back. I accurately predicted that, and not only did we see the deaths reach what we had in previous weeks, we saw the deaths start to go up again to back what they were in early October-ish. And we'll see. Maybe they'll keep going up deeper. But I think at this point, I'm done beating the dead horse of I was right on this. And that's hard for me to do. I like pointing out when I'm right. But I think I think the point has been driven home solidly and firmly enough that the information that was brought up to try and suggest that we were having less and less deaths was wrong. In fact, we had more at the end of the year. More people died per week at the end of the year than the previous months, the previous weeks over the previous 2 months prior. So there we go. There you have it. Let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and play Words of Redneck Wisdom. Let's go ahead and kick that one out because that's interesting. 3, 2, 1, go.
And now, Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio.
I just want to say, men like me absolutely need men like you to calm us down, because I'm an angry man and I can listen to you and you give me some reasonable thought. We are under siege by our own government, have been since COVID. We've been attacked biochemically and psychological warfare, and I just get so angry thinking about it. I mean, it's not who we got to get in there, it's who we got to get rid of that's in there.
And this concludes Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left,
It's a multi-purpose vehicle.
All right. Trying to load a website that had some of the stuff I'm going to talk about after the break, and well, yeah, we got ads that started auto-playing, and that sucks. But anyway, that's Words of Redneck Wisdom this week, and again, interesting, several reasons. First of all, men like him needs men like Jeff. I mean, oh my, that could be taken several ways, but it just kind of goes to show, like, I do think that Jeff is a little more is a little more restrained than perhaps other people. He tries to not advocate for violence, although he does seem to apologize for it, which if you're apologizing for it, if you're being an apologist for the violence, then you're tacitly approving it. But the fact that I think that was just an example of one of the problems of conservatism today, is that you do have these people who are so angry and violent that they need to be controlled, and that this person feels that if it wasn't for Jeff, that he would be more enraged and less controlled. And perhaps that's why some of these people need religion, because they need the fear of of punishment in the afterlife in order for them to do the right thing. And even then, many times, like, for example, all the people that did violence on January 6th, those people clearly were not prevented by their religion from doing bad things. But then the guys kept on talking about who we got to get rid of. Well, how are you going to get rid of them? Are you going to get rid of them at the ballot box? Or are you going to cheat at the ballot box? Or are you going to get rid of them in other nefarious means? And he went on to talk about how the left wing and the right wings are both on the same bird, and that type of stuff. Because he doesn't like Mitch McConnell any more than he likes Nancy Pelosi, I guess, because according to him, because Mitch McConnell married to a woman with Chinese ancestry, that somehow makes him sus, to use modern parlance. And maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe it softens him on certain issues that he might not otherwise be softened on. I mean, the Republicans at one point seem to be a little more concerned about violence against folks who are Chinese than they are against violence against black people. And maybe that's because of who Mitch is married to. I don't know. I can't say for certain. Anyway, let's go ahead and take our second commercial break. Come back, take your calls as well, and we'll start talking about some of the hypocrisy with the censorship issues going on in like states like Florida and Texas and yada yada yada. 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. This is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Greetings. This is Nemes Yosh, host of the Percy Podcast. What is the Percy Podcast? Well, it's pretty much the smoothest talking host you'll ever hear in your life, talking about all kinds of things. Political things, nerdy things, fun things, not so fun things. Go ahead, give a listen, and follow at the Percy Podcast for more updates and information. Why not sit back and take a listen to one of the best podcasts you'll ever hear, and no one else will. Catch you on the tunes.
Do you want to set money aside for a rainy day? Do you want to open an account that will give you a savings bonus each month? What if I told you that you can get both and have a chance to win $10 million? Yada is an FDIC-insured bank, and when you go to yada.liberaldan.com, open an account, and make your first deposit, you will get 100 entries into the next weekly drawing. You will also get entries each week you have a balance. So go to yada.liberaldan.com. That's YOTTA.liberaldan.com. Using gerrymandering, voter suppression, and other nefarious tactics, the Republican Party has manipulated our electoral system to maintain as much control as possible despite being a party in the minority. Liberal Dan Radio seeks to change that, and I need your help in doing so. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution, it will encourage other voters to reach out to their legislators to pass legislation to stop gerrymandering and voter suppression, and target elected officials who refuse to protect the vote. Every eligible voter should be able to cast a ballot, and that ballot should have the same power as everyone else. I can't do this alone. I need your help. So please go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it's 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. Again, remember to if you like Liberal Dan Radio, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me all over the internet. Facebook.com/LiberalDan, Liberal Dan Radio on Twitter, Liberal Dan Radio on TikTok. And if you want to support the show and potentially even buy advertising, you could also go to patreon.com/LiberalDan or patreon.liberaldan.com, and that will allow you to support the show like Demonox and your boy Chris and Cesar does. So I appreciate y'all, but even if you can't afford to make a financial contribution to the show to help me expand and everything, the best thing you could do is to subscribe right here on YouTube, and just share the heck out of my posts, and that would be wonderful. That would be great. I would appreciate it muchly. Anyway, so we have a lot of, rabble rousing and harumph about, as Demonox just said in the chat, conservatives crying that Neil Young is trying to cancel Joe Rogan, while Young sings about living in the rocket in the free world. and they're failing to understand free market capitalism. That's one of the points I was going to make, is that, you know, these conservatives will often talk about free market capitalism, and they'll pleasure themselves with the invisible hand daily, and love to talk about how the free market is the best thing for consumers. But part of the free market is, you know, determining where you're going to sell your wares, where you're going to sell your goods, where you're going to feature the stuff that you are promoting out there to try and make a profit. And if Neil Young doesn't want to have his songs on Spotify because Joe Rogan is financially supported by Spotify, then that's Neil Young's right to do so. And if that means that listeners of Neil Young who would typically go to Spotify to listen to Neil Young now have to go somewhere else to listen to Neil Young, Spotify is going to lose market share. And that's how capitalism works. And but the thing is, conservatives don't really like capitalism. Conservatives don't really, because they only like it when it benefits them. They only like, you know, the where all the rich people get to hoard all the money part of capitalism. They don't like the other parts that are inconvenient to them. But there's a huge difference between capitalist censorship, if you want to call it censorship. I even hesitate calling it censorship. It's just free market. You know, Spotify said, you know, people saying, I don't want to listen to Spotify if Spotify has Joe Rogan, and that's just free market. That's not censorship. Now, if Spotify says our bottom line is being harmed too much by having Joe Rogan on our podcast, so if they would at some point decide to handle Joe Rogan differently, to just put a disclaimer on his episodes, and they said, look, this is hurting us too much, we need to get rid of Joe Rogan, that's not censorship. That's a capitalist decision. But again, conservatives don't like capitalism when it doesn't serve their purposes, because it's because, as I have said, and as the host of the Most Nimbus Yosh will often say, hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite. But meanwhile, state-sponsored censorship is a completely different thing. And this is where conservatives are even more proving themselves to be hypocritical. So you had the graphic novel Mouse, deals with the Holocaust, a Tennessee school board curriculum. There's been discussion since then about Art Spiegelman's Mouse and why they would not allow that book. There's other examples. There's, in Texas, you had an example of that they were told that schools had to give both sides of the Holocaust. Like, to be fair, I guess, to the Nazis? I don't know. I mean, come on. You know, why do you have to be fair to both sides when telling the one side completely explains what the other side did? But no, because they have to pander to their white supremacist folks, you know, to the person who is protesting outside of the Capitol at one point on January 6, 2021, with a shirt that said 6 million wasn't enough, i.e. he would have wanted to see more Jews dead. DeSantis, Florida is chock full of stuff. Florida State Board of Education banned critical race theory, even though they don't really have critical race theory in schools. What they have in schools is discussion about things like, you know, the Tulsa, you know, race attacks, the attacks on Black Wall Street, issues dealing, you know, with segregation and Jim Crow laws and things that make white people uncomfortable, because they don't like dealing with the past. They don't like to be reminded that their grandfather or great-grandfather once, you know, lynched a black dude for having the audacity to be nice to a white person or to want to drink from the same water fountain. they adopted new rules. It said would shield school children from curricula that would, quote, distort historical events. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis urged members, many of whom he appointed, to adopt new measures that would serve students with facts rather than, quote, trying to indoctrinate them with ideology. The ideology, that, black people were slaves, the 1619 project that conservatives seem to have such a huge problem with, with the fact that to understand that, how it is that black people come to this country and the impact that slavery has had on the people, and the fact that racist institutions that have existed throughout the existence of this country and even prior to the creation of this country, how that has had an effect on the lives of black people in this country. Opponents of critical race theory, according to this article, say school children should not be taught that America is fundamentally racist. Governors and legislators in Republican-led states around the country are considering to have signed laws that would limit how teachers can frame American history. Well, Black history is American history. This is Black History Month. We've started off, how do we start Black History Month off this month? We started off Black History Month with bomb threats in several historically black colleges and universities. That's how we decided to start off Black History Month this year. But no, we're not a racist country, not at all. We have to, quote, be fair, because Joe Biden wants to appoint the first black woman to the Supreme Court. It's racist of him, according to these crazy white people. It's racist of him to only consider a black woman. Well, wasn't it racist to never consider a black woman for the last 200 plus years for the Supreme Court? They don't want to touch that one. It's been, what was it? Ruth Bader Ginsburg says, what would she like to see in the Supreme Court? 9 women. And everyone's like, what? 9 women? Why? I was like, well, we had 9 men for centuries. Why can't we have 9 women for a bit? Seems to make sense. But no. Candace Owens said racism isn't over. Stop clocks are right twice a day too, I suppose. Candace Owens also said that Hitler would have been fine for had he only wanted to make Germany great again. And then tried to deny that she said what she said. To me, the comments by Whoopi Goldberg were insensitive and really weren't thinking much, but her statements were nowhere near as horrible as the statements of Candace Owens, who would have said Hitler would have been okay had he only just tried to kill Jews in Germany. Oh, Candace Owens said racism is over? Yeah, I'm sure. That's the problem with certain conservatives, that they don't, like, they want to put blinders on because they think that they can, I guess somehow be popular within their within their political ideology that they've chosen. She said it is over. Common sense ruined Demonox's comment. And it's understandable. It's sometimes hard for me to quote racist when it comes to what things that they say. Let's see. Florida law already requires school to provide instruction on a host of fundamentals, including Declaration of Independence, Holocaust, African American history, but the topics have been muddled. Current events, including killings of black people by police, have intensified debates. Some have called for, quote, faithful interpretation of U.S. history that honors the founding of the country as a rebellion against oppression, British rule. But some Americans, particularly black people, Native Americans, Latinos, and Asian Americans, argue that dissenting perspectives are often missing from textbooks. The new rules say the classrooms must be factual and objective, may not suppress or distort significant historical events. Excuse me, but it also makes specific mention of theories that distort historical events, or what have you. So again, they don't want us to teach so-called critical race theory, even though, again, critical race theory is really not what's being taught in whatever. Again, new rules also forbid use of the 1619 Project, a classroom program spawned by New York Times project that focuses on teaching about slavery and African American history. The project's name refers to the year popularly believed when slaves were first brought to colonial America. So you can't learn about that. You can learn about slaves, I guess. Like the original words of Redneck wisdom person who was like, oh, they should have been happy they were brought here to America because they had a place to stay and food to eat. But again, Florida bill to shield people from feeling discomfort over historic actions by their race, nationality, or gender, approved by Senate committee. A bill backed by Republican Ron DeSantis that would prohibit Florida's public schools and private businesses from making people feel discomfort or guilt based off of their race, sex, or national origin. First got approval in the state Senate Education Committee. The Republican-controlled committee approved the bill with 6 Republican senators in favor. The bill, named Individual Freedom, whatevs, does not mention critical race theory. The term is used in the attached analysis that was given to senators. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at the bill text via the webpage. Unlawful employment practices, subjecting any individual as a condition of employment, blah, 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 to believe any of the following concepts. Members of one race, color, sex, or national origin are morally superior to members of another. Individual by virtue of his or her race, whatever, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive. An individual's moral character or status is either privileged or oppressed is necessarily determined by his or her race. So you can't teach white privilege, even though white privilege exists. You can't teach about privilege, even though privilege exists. An individual's moral character is either privileged or, members of one race, color, sex, or national origin cannot or shouldn't attempt to treat others with that respect. An individual by virtue of his or her race, color, bears responsibility for or should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment because of actions committed in the past. I mean, nobody's wanting to do that, but okay. An individual by virtue of his or her race, color, sex, or national origin should be discriminated or receive adverse treatment to achieve diversity, equity, or inclusion. I mean, again, nobody is punishing people for being white, but we've punished people for being black, so there needs to be some equity there. Individuals should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on his or, I don't know. So you should, we have to, these people like to use the term snowflakes a lot, but they're so sensitive when it comes to, so I can't say, we should look as white people. So if I want to say us as white people should try and consider how our actions impact others and how our, world views might not include an understanding of how other people's worldviews might look like. And so maybe we should take the time to consider that in our daily actions, because that might somehow make somebody feel discomfort, guilt, or anguish. It's ridiculous. So Demonox, is Biden doing performative tokenism? Yes. Is Biden trying to make up for Anita Hill? Maybe. But also, I don't care. Elect a black woman, I'll take it. Also, you literally can't be on the Supreme Court without being qualified, so it's just deciding not to discriminate for a change. I mean, you can be on the Supreme Court without being qualified. Technically, I think Biden could name me to the Supreme Court. I mean, I'm not a black woman, so I wouldn't qualify for this one. But I think Biden can name anybody he wants to the Supreme Court. There's no requirements, I think, for that one has to be a judge or one has to have been a lawyer or anything. You could just, was it Taft became a Supreme Court justice or whatever? I don't know what his, other than being president, what it was. I don't think there's any requirements. It's just, I think I kind of understood that if we're going to pick somebody to the Supreme Court, you want to have somebody who has at least some understanding of the law. But I'm pretty certain that if I was president, I could pick Yosh, be like Yosh for Supreme Court, and if as long as he got the consent to be on the Supreme Court, he would be on the Supreme Court. Doesn't matter what his employment was previously. But anyway, so apparently you can't talk about privilege because that makes people sad. White people, so it makes white people feel, maybe feel guilty over the fact that they, have an advantage over their, because of their race. And you can't teach that, even though it's true. Even though there is clear examples of the fact that people have privilege, and if day to day, in their day-to-day lives and in their interactions with police and in the ability to get, loans, employment. If somebody has a name that sounds like it might be ethnic, they might get thrown to the bottom of the pile when looking at job applications. All those sort of things, are elements of privilege that these people, well, where's my privilege? Well, the people usually saying that are probably, you know, poor white folks who don't understand that they are suffering from certain lack of privileges, i.e. class privilege or lack thereof. But, you know, they're not ready to understand the concept of intersectionality either. Hell, some of these people probably can't even pronounce the word intersectionality. They just don't. They're not, if they can't understand the simple concept of privilege, they're not going to be able to understand the concept of, you know, how layers of privilege can lay on top of each other, and where, you know, a straight black man might have more privilege than a gay trans black woman, but still the straight black man still lacks privilege because of his race. And still, if you compare him with police interactions of a straight white man, that straight white man, all other things being equal, on average will have better interactions with the police officer than the straight black man will. This has been my TED Talk. To 20,000 view. Then you have, of course, Florida also has the Don't Say Gay bill, where, let's see, a school district may not encourage, excuse me, got that lingering cough still. A school district may not encourage classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in primary grade levels, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students. A parent of a student may bring action against the school district in order to obtain a declaratory judgment that the school district procedure or practice violates this paragraph and seek injunctive relief. A court may award damages and shall award reasonable attorney fees and court costs to a parent who receives declaratory or injunctive relief. So it's not okay to talk about gay people or trans people in school because, you know, again, it might hurt the conservative white folks to know that other people exist. It's, even though ignoring the fact that, you know, 42% of all LGBTQA youth, you know, are considered suicide at some point over the last year because of the way that the school system treats LGBTQA. Our society treats LGBTQA folks because we pass stupid things like this that, you know, makes it so that we can't talk about people and that exist in this world and who live in this world and who study next to your kids. It's okay for your kid's going to be learning next to a gay person. Your kid's going to be friends with somebody who is a gay person, but you just want to shove that gay person in the closet so that you as a parent are not made uncomfortable by it. Meanwhile, you know, if you did your job as a parent and, you know, just taught them to treat every kid with equality and respect, you know, these kids wouldn't have these problems. You know, it's as simple as that. But, you know, and then you also have, and then you want to bring up there's a commercial that runs on, or it's voiced by Jeff on the morning show that I listen to all the time, that is like, do you want to be in the Louisiana legislature? Do you support women's rights and the Second Amendment, or women's sports and the Second Amendment? Could you support women's rights and the Second Amendment in the Louisiana legislature, or defend women's sports and the Second Amendment? That's how it's worded. It's very repetitive and it's that annoying. It's literally that's how he talks during the commercial. Do you support women's sports? But, you know, in supporting, you know, women's sports, they mean, you know, preventing trans women from participating in sports. And my argument for that has been, you know, your little Sally is like unlikely to. Your little Sally is let's say I just had a little problem with OBS. I don't know. I'm connected. Let me just restart that whole sentence because it seemed that we disconnected and reconnected to YouTube. Your little Sally, if you're, you know, participating in women's sports in high school, is probably not very likely to go up against a trans woman. But if she does, you know, I think it's more important that we consider the fact that suicide rates among trans youth are higher the less people that accept them for who they are. It's conversely said, for every person who accepts a trans person for who they are, and they're identified with gender, they're 50% less likely to commit suicide. And people who don't understand math will be like, what, so you need 2? No, 50% and then 50% of that, and then 50% more of that of the remaining, and then 50% more of the remaining. So it gets better every time it happens. So the more we accept somebody for being trans, the less likely they are to commit suicide. And that should be the goal. Protecting young trans lives, not worrying about whether or not little Sally gets to go to college on a track and field scholarship. And one of the articles that I cite when I often talk about this whole problem is the fact that, the fact that this person was complaining because she finished 8th and only the top 5 got the scholarship, and 2 of those people were trans. Well, why didn't you do better than the other cis women? Well, because obviously the problem wasn't the trans women. The problem was the fact that you couldn't beat out the other cis women either for the scholarship. But maybe we shouldn't be putting people's hopes and dreams on going to college on a sports scholarship. They talk about fairness. Well, what about the people who have a disability who can't participate in sports to begin with? Those people are at a disadvantage. They can't even have the opportunity to participate in a sport, potentially. Maybe they might, be able to participate in like the Paralympic Games or whatever. Maybe they'll be able to, maybe there's some opportunities for them, but their opportunities are less. Or let me just overweight, so you can't, you have a thyroid condition and you can't keep a steady weight, so you can't participate in sports because you can't do well enough in sports because your body won't let you do well enough in sports. Then what? You don't care about those people? What about the kids with parents who can afford trainers and send people to special camps and classes and give them elite training so that they could just smoke their peers? That's not fair. But you're not complaining about that. You're just cherry picking fairness. They're cherry picking fairness. Why? Because it's not about fairness. It's about their hatred of trans people. It's about their transphobia. It's about them being mean to trans folk. It's about just like the whole, you can't say gay in school. You have to censor. They don't want to talk about anything that makes them feel uncomfortable, because if they have to actually confront things that make them uncomfortable, they might actually have to do what? They might have to actually admit that they're wrong. And that is the cardinal sin of conservatism. Just trying to admitting that you're wrong is the most horrible thing that conservative could ever do. Period. Let's see. Also, Yoshua Scotus, Demonox, privilege isn't real because as a cishet white male aged 25 to 45, I've never been given piles of gold. Wow. I'm Jewish. I don't have my piles of gold either. So, wah, wah. Anyway, so I think though that the ending on the whole thing of the problem with conservatives and conservatism and why they censor these things is at the end of the day, again, they don't want to be confronted with the fact that with things that make them uncomfortable, because again, at the end of the day, they don't want to ever have to be able to learn something and then have to say, oh, maybe I was wrong about this one thing. Because again, that's the absolute worst thing that could happen to a conservative ever, is them having to admit that they were wrong. And that's pretty much, I think, where we're going to end this episode of Liberal Dan Radio. Keep your eyes peeled for the for the announcement for the show that's going to take place 2 weeks from now. I'm very excited about it. It's a relatively famous person who's going to be a guest. Demonox already knows, but I let them have the secret advance notice of the secret, but it will be happening shortly and soon. So, but this is the end of this week's episode of Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. I'll be back next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central, blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan, and youtube.com/liberaldanradio. Remember, like this video, subscribe to the channel to help me out on YouTube. Let's get myself to being monetized. And if you can do so, support the Patreon as well, patreon.com/liberaldan, and go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com to try and help me fight gerrymandering, voter suppression, and the rest of the bad stuff that the Republicans are going to do. Until next week, this is Dan Zimmerman with Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.